Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's webinar, Rise Above Burnout. We are going to be learning about pathways to recovery and resilience. This webinar is brought to you by Workplace Peace Institute and is part of our new Paradigm Leadership Educational Series. I'm so happy to see you all here today. I see some familiar faces and I see some new people, and I'm very happy to welcome you all here together. So again, this webinar is brought to you by Workplace Peace Institute. At Workplace Peace Institute, we are on a mission to create highly engaged workplaces where dignity is consistently honored. We know that when people thrive, there is a correlating effect to organizations thriving. And yet, very few of us are actually thriving in the workplace. Year over year research from Gallup shows that around 20 to 23% of the workforce is really truly thriving. These are people who are really engaged in and enthusiastic about their work and their workplace. An astonishing 77% of the workforce is disengaged. That means that the vast majority of people are not enthusiastic about their work. They are not enthusiastic about their workplace. And this represents um, an astonishing lack of just human potential. And we really need all of us to be really engaged in the workplace for us to solve the complex problems and challenges that the world is facing today. Of these 77% of people who are disengaged, 59% of them are quiet quitting. That means that they're not engaged, they're not really enthusiastic, and they're just sort of riding the clock. Oftentimes internet surfing, just checking out LinkedIn, maybe looking for new jobs. And then 18% are loud quitting. These are the people who are actively seeking to bring people into their disengagement. So this is something that we really need to be paying attention to as leaders, because the level of engagement that we have in the workplace is a direct correlation to our ability to actualize our mission and the purpose in which we have all come together and that we should be mobilizing our efforts toward. At Workplace Peace Institute, we really orient all of our work around basic human needs. Those of you who have worked with me one-on-one or who have been a part of many of these webinars are familiar with the framework of basic human needs that we bring into all of our work. And we do this through culture development, change management and consulting, leadership development, conflict engagement, and also supporting organizations in creating trauma-informed workplaces. My name is Robin Short. I am the founder and CEO of Workplace Peace Institute. My role here at the organization is as an organization systems design consultant. That means that I'm always looking at how a system is operating and how that system is influencing the way that humans show up in the workplace. And we're going to see in just a few minutes that our organizational systems can be one of the primary drivers of burnout in the workplace. I also work as a leadership development trainer and coach, a mediator and peace builder, and as a diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging consultant. We also have my colleague, Sherry Boxell, here with us today. Sherry brings almost 2 decades of experience in holistic health to her behavioral health coaching clients. She's dedicated her life to empowering others on their wellness journey, and her expertise encompasses a diverse range of coaching practices, from somatic health coaching to transformational executive coaching and embodied breathwork instruction. Her approach is deeply rooted in fostering personal growth and optimal performance among professionals across a myriad of industries. And today she is going to support us with a guided practice later on in our time together to really support each of you in your own wellness journey. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to take a look at the psychological and physical aspects of burnout and its impact on our work. We'll identify some early signs of burnout, stress, anxiety, and depression, both in ourselves and how to recognize that in others. We'll learn some stress management techniques like mindfulness, time management, and communication. Sherry will guide us through a stress management technique for us to experience together. And we'll discover some strategies to build resilience and support mental health in the workplace. So let's get started with a definition about just shared understanding about what burnout is. Burnout is physical, emotional, or mental exhaustion. It's often accompanied by decreased motivation. We just don't feel like we have the energy to pour into our work. We may have lowered performance and negative attitudes, both towards ourselves as well as others. Burnout can happen when our work life integration gets out of sync, when we just aren't having the balance between our professional life and our personal life that's needed for whole health. So we know that burnout may be emerging when we experience fatigue, when we just feel constantly tired, and when that fatigue seems to come with a sense of overwhelming responsibilities. We might have apathy or dissatisfaction with our work, some persistent feelings of what's the point, questioning whether our work is even meaningful or enjoyable. If we think about apathy or dissatisfaction with work, you can see how that high number of 59% of people who are quiet quitting may be experiencing some burnout. We may have headaches, so frequent tension headaches can be linked to stress and burnout. And we may also see some changes beginning to emerge in our diet as well as in our sleep patterns. This could look like eating more than we usually eat. And that might even be eating foods like sugar or caffeine to try to give us more energy. Or it could be that we're just not eating as much as we used to, which could also be supporting our fatigue when we're not getting enough healthy food and nutrition into our bodies. We may sleep too much or too little, or we may find ourselves sleeping at unusual times. So if you are having the sense or observing in others fatigue or apathy, headaches, or a change in the way that they're eating or sleeping, these could be some signs that the person or that you are experiencing burnout. Burnout can look like depression, but it is actually different. So, burnout tends to be triggered by specific environments or stressors, such as job demands. Um, this could also be high demand in the work. I was speaking with someone today who there's a lot of stress in their workplace. Their mother's been diagnosed with a chronic illness. Their father is in the hospital. Their spouse is having um, uh, some health related events and conditions, and they're feeling really, really overwhelmed. So burnout can be both because of specific things that are happening in the workplace, but it could be also stressors that are happening in our personal life, combined with a lot of demands that are taking place at work. These symptoms can improve with rest or with a distance from the source of stress. So when we make some behavioral adjustments, that can have a direct correlation on our experiences of burnout. Depression is broader in scope, so it's not always linked to specific situations. Depression might include persistent feelings of helplessness or worthlessness. Symptoms will typically persist regardless of what's actually happening. So you could go on vacation, you could get the rest, you could get distance from those stressors, but the symptoms continue to persist. So I want to talk a little bit about how organizational systems can set us up for burnout. I think oftentimes when you hear People from companies like Workplace Peace Institute or other leadership development training and coaching companies talk about burnout, we tend to talk about the individual behaviors that may be leading to burnout, therefore putting responsibility on the individual for why that burnout is showing up and then how they can individually address it. But the reality is that the systems that we are operating in will have an impact on our physiology and on our individual well-being. And so I think it's important for those of us who hold leadership positions, particularly people who may have C-suite executive positions, to understand that the way our systems are designed are also going to influence how much stress is in those systems. So I use this framework often. It's a framework that really informs a lot of our culture development work at Workplace Peace Institute. And it's inspired from the work of Frederick Laloux in his book, Reinventing Organizations. And Laloux defines different types of organizational paradigms that we see in the workplace and just assigns a color to them. I refer to all of these organizational paradigms that are red, amber, and orange as Newtonian organizations. And the reason is because the Newtonian principle of the amount of force you apply to something is equivalent to the amount of production that you will get out of that. And when you stop applying force, it impacts the amount of production. And so there is a push in order to get movement in a Newtonian organization. All of these organizations, red, amber, orange, are typically very hierarchical in nature. They're your traditional pyramid structure of an organization where people who hold the most power sit at the top of that pyramid, and the people with the less power sit at the bottom of that pyramid. And the people at the bottom of the pyramid are responsible for the vast majority of the production in the organization. So power sits at the top, and there is a power over kind of mentality in the leadership approach. This leads to, oftentimes, it can lead to the people who are sitting at the very top of that pyramid not having access to all of the wisdom, the expertise, the in the field knowledge that comes at grassroots level. When you have the frontline workers and the individual contributors in the organization really being closest to the problems, they have a lot of wisdom about the solution. But in power over structures, it can be hard to move that wisdom up the pyramid. And that can lead to high pressure, high command and control organizational structures where goals may be set at unrealistic levels, workload may be set at unrealistic levels, and there isn't a feedback loop in place for people to feel supported, for people to feel like their contributions to an organization are recognized, for people to get the acknowledgement that they need and the feedback around contribution to really grow in an organization. And all of that can lead to stress. And that can, over time, lead to burnout. So when we think about burnout in our organizations, we need to be really clear-eyed about how the system itself might be putting so much pressure on the human individual that those stressors are becoming overwhelming and too difficult to work with. When we look at this framework and we see the green, turquoise, and teal paradigms, these are paradigms where power is really designed to be in a power with relationship, where relational leadership is prioritized, where the growth and development of the individual is prioritized, where leaders see their roles as mentors, as encouragers, as those whose role it is to bring people together for collaborative problem solving. And I call these quantum organizations because in a quantum organization, everything happens in relationship. And through relationship, we are able to manage difficulty without high stress, be in what I think of as right relationships that have integrity, where we really truly know and respect one another, and where dignity is really at the core of how the organization operates. In a quantum organization, you're going to see less burnout because the way it's designed with resiliency in mind. So workplace conflict, excuse me, sets us up for burnout. And we do tend to see more conflict in in Newtonian organizational structures, in these red, amber, and orange organizational structures. Because of the way the power dynamic moves, it tends to produce more conflict in the workplace. Last year, we did a state of conflict in the workplace study. And I wanted to share just a little bit of the statistics from that study to really help us understand how conflict can lead to burnout. So some of the top 10 triggers for workplace conflict is lack of trust. 73% of our survey participants said that lack of trust drives conflict, personality clashes, a lack of role clarity, workplace stress, heavy workloads, destructive communication patterns, lack of team cohesion, abuses of power, hierarchical decision making, and a lack of adherence to mission and vision. These top 10 triggers of workplace conflict could also be called top 10 triggers for workplace burnout because all of these things are going to increase stress and eventually feel really overwhelming to the human body. Some other data from our study is that supporting this statistic from Gallup that 77% of the workforce is engaged, 32% share that they just don't feel motivated in the workplace, 28% feel really frustrated, and the majority of people feel stress. This is going to lead to the physiological experiences of burnout in the workplace. So, some early signs that you can start to pay attention to and maybe intervene early for yourself as individuals is when you have mental and physical exhaustion. Um, a couple of weeks ago, I could feel that I was reaching my point of burnout, and I just declared for myself I need 3 straight days of absolutely no screen time. I've got to intervene and I've got to support my brain in recovery from all the work that I had been doing and the amount of screen time that I had been engaging in. You may have reduced motivation or enthusiasm. Work you really genuinely usually enjoy just feels like one more task on your to-do list. You may have trouble concentrating, having to reread things over and over again, having to ask people to repeat themselves, increased irritability or anxiety, a loss of interest in previously enjoyable activities, and of course, changes in sleep patterns. So these are all signs that suggest your risk of burnout. And the sooner you are able to recognize them and address them to support yourself, the better you'll be able to be in course correcting, and really not moving fully into a state of burnout. So, I want to talk for a few minutes about what's actually happening physiologically when we experience burnout. And to do that, I want to talk a little bit about Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory. I'm going to talk at a high level about this. Some of you may have participated in a recent webinar that we did about polyvagal theory. And if you didn't, I recommend you can visit our website and access that webinar to really dig into this theory about the vagus nerve. But what for today's purpose I want to talk about is the 3 different states of the body's nervous system states. And one is our sense of safety. So this is the state of parasympathetic. And when we feel safe And when I say feel safe, I mean that really intentionally. Our nervous system doesn't really discern the difference between actually being safe and feeling safe. The only thing that matters is if we have the feeling of safety. So when we feel safe, we are in optimal arousal. We are able to rest appropriately. Our nervous system is able to do all of the work that it does around just automatically digesting food, which means we aren't having stomach issues. We're able to socially engage, um, which is often sometimes called tend and befriend. So we're able to be social, relational with each other. We see each other, we see engagement as something that's supportive, not something that maybe is causing us increased stress and anxiety. And we have high levels of executive functioning. So the area of our brain that's responsible for problem solving, uh, analyzing problems, collaborating is fully online. It's probably very obvious that in the workplace, we are going to be able to do our best work when we feel safe. I don't know of any studies that have made a correlation between Gallup's 23% of people who are thriving in the workplace, but what I know from brain science is that those people feel safe. You cannot thrive and not feel safe. So there's definitely a correlation between our ability to thrive in the workplace and our ability to be both physically and psychologically safe in the workplace. When our nervous system senses danger, our sympathetic nervous system gets aroused, and this can cause us to kind of have a sense of hypervigilance or hyper arousal. It's when you find yourself jumping, right? You hear a noise or someone walks in and you kind of jump out of your skin. Your system is just on alert. You might hear your email come in or your phone ringer go off, and it causes your nervous system to go into an alert state. This is our fight or flight. It's when our fight or flight is activated. So our amygdala is activated and it's giving us the cortisol and the adrenaline that we need to protect ourselves. And then we have a threat state. This is when we go into just almost shutdown mode. This is where we are in a state of withdrawal, a sense of collapse. We may feel dissociated. I know that there have been times in my life I can recognize when I'm in parasympathetic because just start getting dizzy all the time. I stand up and I feel really, really dizzy. And it's when my nervous system is in a state of threat in a kind of unrelenting way. Um, so when we are in the early signs of burnout, we're moving into danger state from a nervous system perspective. And when we are in full burnout, we're in parasympathetic. So, to understand a little bit more about this, I just want to talk a minute about the vagus nerve. This is the longest and most complex of the cranial nerves. It's often called the wandering nerve because it extends from the brainstem all the way through multiple organs in the body. You can see this graphic over here that shows you all the different aspects of your body that the vagus nerve is communicating with. So it's a key component of the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to regulate vital functions like heart rate, digestion, and immune response. So when we are in the early signs of experiencing burnout, this vagus nerve is going to start communicating to all these different aspects of the body that we are moving into a threat state. And that can have obvious health ramifications. And then if we move all the way into danger, the increased health ramifications become even worse. The primary nerve of the parasympathetic system, this vagus nerve, plays crucial roles in our physical regulation and our ability to have a calm and steady heart rate, calm and steady breathing, normal digestion. Emotional regulation, so it influences mood, stress, response, and social engagement. and social connection. It supports our facial expressions, our vocal tone, our listening abilities. When we're in a state of threat, we actually don't hear as well as we do when we're in a state of safety. So, as we begin to experience burnout, this vagus nerve begins to communicate information to our entire body, which is going to start having impact on our physical, emotional regulation, as well as our capacity for social connection. There's three neural circuits that are involved in this. One is the ventral vagal state. So we are in ventral vagal state when we are in a sense of safety, when our nervous system and our vagus nerve is experiencing safety. This is that optimal state for workplace collaboration, communication, and problem solving. Those 23% of people who are thriving in the workplace are in a pretty consistent ventral vagal state. So this is characterized by a sense of social connection, emotional balance, our ability to engage in meaningful interactions, and our ability to collaborate with our tasks. Our sympathetic state is when we're beginning to move into that fight or flight. I would venture to guess that those 59% of people who are quiet quitting are kind of navigating this sympathetic state on a pretty regular basis. So, this physiologically looks like increased heart rate, a heightened sense of alert, readiness to respond to perceived threats or challenges. And it can be activated during the workplace when there's a lot of stress, when deadlines are persistent or maybe feel uh, unachievable, and when we experience a lot of workplace conflict. And then there is the dorsal vagal state. This is that state of shutdown that we talked about. It manifests as withdrawal, as disconnection, or shutdown in overwhelming workplace situations. So it's often activated around feelings of helplessness. I'm sorry, activation can look like, it can manifest as feelings of helplessness, decreased energy and productivity, and difficulty engaging in tasks or social interactions. So I want to share this same information with you in a different visual graphic, just so you can kind of understand the three neural circuits as a ladder. Our ventral vagal state is that optimal state at the very top. It's where we're engaged, we're connected. Sympathetic is that kind of middle ground where we're mobilized for action, we're mobilized for fight or flight. Sympathetic isn't always bad. It's a neuroception of danger, so it's sensing for danger. You're going to see the sympathetic arousal when you're in distress, but you're also going to see it when you're experiencing eustress. So, eustress is positive stress. So, if there's a challenge in the workplace that's actually really exciting, you may have some sympathetic activation. For me, I love to ski. Ski is definitely a state of eustress. It's exciting stress, but it's also a state of sympathetic arousal. And then you have your dorsal vagal. That's the very, very bottom of the ventral, the polyvagal ladder, and that's that collapsed state. So recognizing these shifting states is really important so that as individuals, we can be responsible for caring for ourselves, but also as leaders so that we're in responsible relationship with the people who we lead on our teams. Um, Key indicators of a shifting neural state in the workplace include some physical signs, might be changes in breathing patterns, muscle tension, or posture. So, paying attention to how people are showing up physically will give you some insight into what's happening to them physiologically. Behavioral changes might look like withdrawal from interactions, aggressive communication, or increased irritability. And then you may also have some cognitive symptoms. So, folks that are having a difficulty focusing, decreased decision making ability, or just general mental fog. So, you want to pay attention to these shifting states, both for yourself, but also for those that you're in relationship with in the workplace so that we can be supportive in our relationships. Some strategies for preventing burnout include relational leadership. So I'll talk about this from a leadership perspective is really leading people from a human-centered place, but also being in relational professional relationships with one another, seeing each other as humans first, being intentional about social engagement, and prioritizing fellowship in the workplace. Having healthy work-life integration, knowing how to build respectful boundaries so that you don't lead to burnout. A colleague of mine said several years ago to me, boundaries preserve the integrity of the relationship. And I have thought about that in so many contexts. And it's so true in the workplace. We need to know where our boundaries are so that we can stay in an optimal state and give feedback to colleagues and leaders when they're pushing too hard on those boundaries so that you can have healthy work-life integration. Having supportive services such as employee assistance programs include the support. Having supportive services include things like somatic experiencing, behavioral health coaching, somatic coaching, mindfulness coaching, and other mindful practice support, and integrating mindfulness practices into the workplace. So I am going to pause here and pass this over to Sherry so Sherry can guide us through a practice together.
Hi, everyone. So before we move into the practice, I want to offer a quick note on exactly what we're doing and why. So it's important to keep in mind that we all regulate stress a little differently. So for some of us, movement is really grounding, and other people respond to breath, stillness, touch, even our eyes, our vision can shape how we feel. So I'm sure that there have been times when some of you have tried some grounding exercises or some breathwork practices and not really noticed much of a difference. And that can feel really frustrating, right? Like these things were supposed to work. What went wrong? So, what I thought would be most helpful for us to do today is to actually explore a range, a few simple tools, and kind of notice what, if anything, makes the most difference for you and your system. And based on that, you can then begin forming an idea of which of these practices might work best for you. So it's really important to keep in mind that this really isn't about fixing anything or, getting it right. It's more about taking an opportunity to listen inwards and discover what feels most regulating for you. So we'll be doing this as a short reset, and I'm going to show ways to help support your nervous system in real time. And it can be very helpful to realize that you don't necessarily need to go to a yoga class or a week-long retreat to get benefit from this. So these are tools, I specifically chose these tools because they're things that you might be able to do right at your desk, on a break, maybe in your car, or even discreetly during a meeting if you need to help you center during a stressful moment, depending on the context. So these practices were chosen because they can be simple and accessible. And as we go through them today, you're welcome to remain seated or standing, even take a little break, turn your camera off, go lie down, whatever feels best for you and your body. And wherever you are, We're just going to begin by bringing your attention inwards. So you might take a moment just to notice how your body feels. Just doing a brief scan here, noticing sensations in your head, your face, your neck, and shoulders, and down in the back, chest, abdomen, arms and hands, legs and feet. Just notice, is there any tension? A sense of holding on, any areas that feel soft or heavy or tight. And we're not looking for anything specific. We're simply observing what's already here. And now we're going to change our focus by bringing our awareness to the breath. What can you feel here? What's the current quality of your breath? Is it shallow or smooth, tight or open? And again, we don't need to change anything. We're simply noticing what's already here. These are all signs as to the current state of our body. And we can compare this where we are now with where we are in a few minutes' time to notice how effective these practices might be for your system. And since we're already focusing on our breathing, we're going to begin with the breath. So, one common breathing pattern you might explore is something called box breathing. I'm sure many of you may have already heard of this. It's a steady, square rhythm which offers containment and structure when things feel really scattered. And the way we do this is we inhale gently through the nose for 4 counts, hold the breath in the body for 4, exhale back out through the nose for 4, and hold the breath out of the body for 4. So I'm going to guide you through this breath pattern one time together, just to get the hang of it. And then you continue on your own, at your own pace. Whatever count of 4 feels comfortable in your body. So taking a final exhale, preparing to begin together, we inhale for 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Just continue on your own for a moment, your own pace. And if it feels helpful, you might imagine your breath tracing the edges of a box, just bringing a bit of form to the moment. Feeling that pattern in your body. Then Whenever you feel ready, setting that aside and allowing the breath to return to its natural rhythm. Just do a little scan back through the body, starting at the head, working your way down to the toes, and notice what, if anything, might have shifted. Perhaps the pace of your thoughts, the sensation in your chest or shoulders. From here, the next breath pattern we're going to explore is known as the physiological sigh. This is actually a natural rhythm your body may already subconsciously use when releasing tension. To do this, we begin with a full inhale through the nose and then a second smaller inhale through the nose, followed by a long, slow exhale. So it sounds something like inhale, inhale, exhale. I'm going to invite you to try that once or twice. Double inhale, the long, slow exhale. Just notice if that feels supportive. When you're ready, we allow the breath to settle again, simply giving control back to the brainstem, trusting our body to breathe itself, and notice what might be present now. Any change in your energy, your mood, your awareness. So it's important to remember that we're social beings. And one of the most supportive things for our system is co-regulation. So this means that at times, the body responds best to contact. And if you're open to it, we might explore a posture that brings in gentle pressure or containment. And there are a couple options here. One is a self hug. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring the right hand into our left armpit and our left arm across to grasp right above the right elbow. This posture, the self hug, quietly holds you, creating a loop of warmth that stays within your own system. And one of the reasons I really like this is because in social or workplace settings, it can easily pass as a simple crossed arms, right? It's very similar to crossed arms. And you can discreetly offer yourself support in a way that feels both grounding and discreet. The other that we can play with is called a cranial hold. And this is particularly good for when you're going into overwhelm, you get a lot of circular thoughts, and you really just wish your brain would take a breather, helps you to calm and ground. So we place one hand on our forehead and the other the back of our neck, where the head and the skull are the head and the neck meet. And it's just a little containment gesture here. So this shape supports two key parts of your nervous system. Your prefrontal cortex, which helps with focus and decision making, the front, and your brainstem in the back, which governs our basic survival responses. By holding both, you may notice a shift less tension, more clarity, or a subtle sense, permission to pause. And whichever posture you're exploring, or if you decide to shift back and forth between them, just allow your breath to remain soft and notice. Is there a settling, a softening, or a subtle sense of being met from within? You can hold these as long as feels good, just doing a short exploration. When you're ready, we're going to play with our gaze a little bit. And you can actually do that while still holding one of these postures, or just release the hold and play with the vision on its own. So, what we're going to explore now is called a peripheral gaze. And as your focus narrows, as we go into a stress and anxiety response, our vision actually narrows as well. It's like having blinders on. So, another kind of way to signal safety to the system is through our eyes. And the way we can do this is without turning your head, just allow your head and your eyes to stay focused forward. And we start to notice what's at the edges of our visual field, the outer corners of your eyes. And at first, it can help to use your hands here, having your fingers at the outer edges of your gaze. Remember to keep looking forward. And we just extend the fingers out wide and notice when they exit and enter our line of sight, the peripheral view. So, this soft widening of awareness, this peripheral vision, is a cue of safety to the nervous system. There's no effort required, which bring awareness to what's at the edges here. And again, once you get used to doing this, we don't need the fingers. And you can do this during conversations. You can do this at your desk. If you start to feel yourself go into a shutdown. So just notice what that's like and how it might feel different from when our gaze was focused fully forward. And if you would like, I'm going to invite you to spend the last minute just playing with bringing a few of these elements together. So for you, maybe that looks like a self hug with box breathing, or the peripheral vision with a cranial hold. Just matching up two or three of the practices we just did, anything that felt supportive, to notice if they feel even more supportive when we combine a couple of these. And you don't have to. You might find that just one feels a lot better on its own. We're just playing here. So there's no right combination. Simply an invitation to explore what might feel even more effective in your system. And simply notice what unfolds, what might happen in the body as you settle into the pairing. And as I start to bring this to a close, I'm just going to invite you to allow yourself to return slowly to the space around you when you're ready. You might decide to stretch your fingers, shift your posture, come back out into the room. I'm going to pass you back to Robin now to end the session.
Thank you so much, Sherry. That was a lot of drama trying to get my audio to unmute. Sorry about that. But thanks to that gentle practice, it didn't cause me any anxiety. Um, so I just want to lift up that there's no right or wrong way to engaging in your mindfulness practices. You just need for your system to allow you to, for your system to guide you. Be in a mindfulness practice that's supportive for you. And I also want to share some services that we offer that you can engage with individually, but also if you are in a leadership position or in an HR position, these are services that can be really supportive for your staff and for your employees to fold into your existing employee assistant programs. So, one is behavioral health coaching. This is a type of coaching that's client centered and it's designed to improve mental and emotional well being. It's not traditional therapy, which focuses on diagnosing and treating mental disorders, but rather it's about empowering individuals to take proactive steps toward positive change. This is done by fostering self awareness, promoting healthy behaviors, and developing coaching strategies. It's a type of coaching that really equips clients with the tools that they need to thrive in everyday life. We also offer a one-on-one, one-to-one service called somatic experiencing, and this is a type of body-centered healing approach that really supports people in healing from traumatic stress or just intense stress. It was developed by Dr. Peter Levine, and it focuses on the physiological responses to trauma. Unlike traditional talk therapy, somatic experiencing emphasizes the body's natural ability to heal itself by paying attention to bodily sensations, releasing stored tension. Somatic experiencing helps individuals process and overcome trauma at a deep experiential level. This is something that people might want to engage in because they have experienced something really traumatic in their community and it's impacting their work life. Or it could be that something actually really traumatic has happened in the workplace and individuals need support recovering from that experience. I also want to share with you that we have a free Mindful Leaders community of practice. You can access that through the link that's at the bottom of the screen, and you can also access it using the QR code. Here in this Mindful Leaders community, we offer research, articles about mindfulness, we offer free meditations, and you can also access a free 21-day mindfulness meditation challenge to really support you in building the habit of a daily mindfulness practice.